Hello team and welcome to another ATP Geopolitics video with myself, Jonathan MS Pierce. This is a Ukraine war update extra live chat sort of thing with German to Ukraine, whom I have done a chat with before, but it's pre-recorded and he's a little bit reticent about doing it live, but I've strong-armed him and he's here. So it's just massive thanks to him for coming on. And all the caveats apply to someone who's not used to doing live. So if you don't hit us with major questions, at least like I'm not looking at answering a huge number of questions that are coming from the audience. We just got a number of questions that I sent him that we're going to talk about, but hopefully we'll see how it goes and take it from there after those questions. But thank you so much, German to Ukraine, for coming on to speak to me again today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and hello to everyone. And just regarding the questions, although it's very nice of you, I think if I can answer the questions, they can answer everything they want to answer, and ask everything what they want to ask. And I do my best. I do my best. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Well, happy days. I guess we'll start with the situation that Germany are in at the moment, which is Germany has come to the fore in terms of aid to Ukraine. You look at the statistics; they are consistently the second biggest donor to Ukraine at the moment. In fact, if you take only the last 3 or 4 months, I guess they're possibly bigger than the United States now at the moment. And there's this
absolutely.
Is it? Yeah. So is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we have this situation, one hopes that Germany, you're going to pick up the slack and you're going to replace the US if there's this continued issue with the US giving having issues in Congress and not getting that $61 billion aid package through Congress. But of course, it's unrealistic to expect that of Germany to fill the hole that the US not that it has left, but the hole that there is at the moment. What are your thoughts about what Germany is doing, how happy you are, and what the challenges are going forward?
So first of all, to give a comparison from the US to Germany in terms of provided or pledged aid in the future, the last 3 packages by the US alone is like half of the value of the last package by Germany. It's just to give you an comparison. And I mean, Germany is trying to fill the shoes, trying to fill the gap with constant deliveries from week to week, and with actually big deliveries. Just last week, for example, we delivered the Skynex air defense system to Ukraine, which is very vital. And but the major problem is that although we're doing the best what we can, and Germany also signaled like many weeks ago that if it comes down to more aid to Ukraine, Germany will do more, and we are talking about billion figures. But even about that, Germany can't fill the shoes alone. We need whole of Europe to do that, and I'm really hoping that other countries also stepping up, because Germany alone can't do that.
Have you got any thoughts about other countries that could do that? I mean, or I know, in terms of what you might know about the funding, but in terms of what you'd hope for.
Yeah, I mean, countries where I see which could do a lot more are Great Britain, for example, Poland, for example, although these countries have done a lot in the past, of course. But when we see how Germany is doing just fine every single week as before, as 1 year ago, like 1 year ago, we have delivered every week to Ukraine, and today this week we deliver every year to Ukraine, and other countries are, at least it feels like, they're stepping down more and more and more, and I believe they could do more.
Yeah, I think with Britain, I think we'd love to do more. We probably would be giving more if we had stuff in the cupboard. And then this goes to talk about the idea, and that's a big difference between the US and European countries, is that European countries in this peace dividend era that we've had have not invested in their militaries, whereas the US, the military is like a central component of the whole economic, I think, the whole economic strategy. So they're always spending a lot on their military because actually their economy kind of and their international strategy requires that. And so it is somewhat easier for the US to be able to give equipment to Ukraine because they just have tons of it. And European nations have very little equipment, which means we have to ramp up our production, I guess. Are we seeing Germany ramp up a lot of production? Obviously, there's Rheinmetall, KNW, is it, and other producers. Are they ramping up production of equipment?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And just to end this, I mean, this is the same approach Germany has done. Yeah, a lot of the deliveries Germany is doing to Ukraine comes from industry. Like I would say about 90% of all deliveries are coming from the industry. And if other countries would do the same, I mean, it takes a little bit of time at first because systems have to be refurbished, systems has to be produced. But other systems could just do the same as Germany, invest in the industry and just sign more contracts. And that's all. I mean, it's not only Germany who has a lot of arms producers. I mean, there's Poland and Great Britain who have a lot of also important arms producers. And we see that, for example, with the Polish howitzers, which are gets produced for Ukraine. Just sign more contracts. And that's everything what I hope for, to be honest. And in terms of German arms producers, yeah, they all stepped up. I mean, in terms of ammunition production, in terms of air defense, armored vehicles, drones, radar units, everything you can imagine. We see improvements on a massive scale. So, for example, in terms of air defense, Deere ramped up the production of IRIS-T and IRIS-T SL missiles to 500 a year. They also soon want to produce 8 instead of 4 IRIS-T SLM systems per year. Hensoldt, who produces the radar units, TRML-4D, for example, for the IRIS-T SLM, wants to ramp up the production from 1 to 1.5 radars a month. So we see a lot of improvements here in Germany. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean it's frustrating in the UK because we have BAE systems who are massive, but I don't think we even put in orders for artillery ammunition till very, very late. And I don't know. So on the one hand, our government has a lot of money, comparatively speaking. We're the fifth or sixth richest economy in the world. But on the other hand, there's this reticence to put the we say that we're going around. It looks like we prefer to go around the world and buy up artillery rather than say to BAE Systems, go and produce artillery ammunition for us for the next 3 years or something. There seems to be this reticence to put these orders in. And the same with Storm Shadows. There's this company, MBDA, which is and I keep calling it a French company, but it's a French, British, Italian concern. But they do split their stuff locally as well. So I'm not sure where the Storm Shadows and Scout missiles are actually made. But nonetheless, we don't seem to have put in any orders for them. And the same can be said about the Taurus missile as well. So it just there's something that doesn't quite make sense. I'm sure that the UK could be doing better. I'm sure that so many nations could be doing better. But Germany, on the other hand, as you said, is doing, I think, really, really well. There's Lawrence. We did cover this last time we spoke. Lawrence said from 5,000 helmets, Germany has come a long way. Last time you said that actually that's a bit of a misnomer, an incorrect assumption about what Germany did at the beginning. Do you want to just go over that again?
Yeah, so when I remember right, I said that the 5,000 helmets, although the most people think of the 5,000 helmets as the first delivery to Ukraine, but these 5,000 helmets were actually agreed before the full-scale invasion started in, I believe it was January. The first delivery to Ukraine, actually during the wartime, and announcement of deliveries during the wartime, was anti-tank weapons like the Panzerfaust 3, for example, and Stinger manpads, and so that was the first deliveries or first announcements during the war. But you're absolutely right. I mean, the improvement is just massive.
Yeah, and that's really good news. Look, we'll take, before we go and look at Skynex, which is where I wanted to start first. Really, let's just remind people who have forgotten from the last interview or not saw the last interview, where they can find you. And you have this website that you are writing updates for as kind of blog entries for German aid packages, although you're saying that you're yet to do today's one. You've got some writing to do today, but deidua.org/news gives an English version of what Germany are doing. And you also have deidua.org/EM for the English version of all the lists of stuff that is being given. Do you want to just talk a little bit about your website at all?
Yeah. So the blog is like self-explainer. It's like explains itself. It's just the most important stuff Germany is doing in terms of Ukraine, like humanitarian stuff, military stuff, etc. And just as a blog post, more detailed infos than I'm posting on Twitter. And the other one is just my basically a more advanced version of the official list by the German government. And I haven't yet finished the update from yesterday because I had a lot of work to do and also some private stuff. But that's basically
it's such an interesting, it's a really useful list here, sort of index of what Germany has given and what they are planning to give. I mean, when you put it all together like this, you realize how much Germany have sort of stepped up and really come to the fore. We're going to talk a little bit about Skynex, and you can see that there are 2 Skynex on there. What's the situation with Skynex at the moment? And just to remind people what Skynex, do you want to let people know what Skynex is?
Yeah, I can. Just to make sure, the 2 Skynex listed on my website, I listed both because we hadn't prior confirmation by Rheinmetall or by Germany. So I put both on delivered because there were some statements saying that multiple systems have been delivered.
Yeah.
Now that we have the confirmation of one system delivered by Germany, I will reduce it to 1 and put 1 system again or pledged, just as an info.
Well, there was rumor that they had a prototype over there. Do you think that was true or untrue?
Yeah. So first, the Skynex system, to answer your first question.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. So the Skynex system is very easily explained a full-blown cannon-based air defense system, which is used for close-range protection. In other words, at ranges where air defense systems, such as US or German-provided Patriot systems, have problems due to the missiles they use. In simple terms, you could also explain it as a less armored and mobile, but a more modern and effective version of multiple Gepards at the same time. And for the prototypes, I mean, this is a question that cannot be answered as easily, and it would actually raise further questions. But the rumor started at the end of February 2023 with a statement by Rheinmetall CEO Pappberger, who said in an interview that 2 Skynex systems that have protected the Federal Chancellery in Berlin were in service in Ukraine. So that's almost a year ago. Then he withdrew his statement in another interview just a few weeks after that without any explanation. There was some months silence about this. Then there was a Telegram post by Dennis Schümal, who is the Prime Minister of Ukraine, during a visit to Rheinmetall in Italy. And he said that such batteries are already in use in Ukraine. And then later there was a statement in November by Salushny that Skynex is already in use in Ukraine. But we have never seen pictures or videos of them in action in Ukraine. And the only thing we saw was, I believe it was a picture of a Shahid drone being shot down. And due to the picture, we could have led to the conclusion that a head ammunition, which the Skynex system uses, was involved. And that's basically all. And yeah.
Well, it's one of those things where Ukraine is one of the greatest test bases for any new weapon system you'd ever want. Like, if you're involved in the military industrial complex and you want to know how well your weapon would be doing, I mean, what greater place to test it than Ukraine, and being able to go to Zelensky or Zelensky and say, "Hey, we've got this new weapon. Do you fancy trying it out for us?" You can bet they'll be like, "Yeah, we'll do that. Thank you very much."
Absolutely.
So, like, I absolutely bet that was in Ukraine. Do you think what's the? I don't know if you know the production capacity for creating these things, and whether Germany's likely to produce or give more of these to Ukraine.
I mean, there could be more deliveries. In theory, yes. I mean, there could never be enough air defense, right?
Yeah.
At least right now. And the big question is, how long would they have to wait for it? Officially, the production, training, and delivery of just one system has now taken a year. I mean, of course, there's the rumor that the systems have been there, but if that's really the case, these are only the systems which are already produced. And when they need or they need 1 year to produce, train the soldiers, and deliver the system to Ukraine, like a whole year, I mean, I'm not sure if it's worth it. Like, one system costs about 91 million euros. Imagine what you can finance with it, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I suppose when it's at the beginning of its life cycle, it's going to take longer to produce, longer to train on, and it will be at the most expensive it's ever been, and it will ever be. I presume, like right now, the more they produce, the cheaper they'll become. But I guess this will be great advertising. I mean, this is the same for a lot of defense manufacturers that are helping Ukraine out. There's obviously going to be a vested interest in them doing this. And so I imagine Rheinmetall are going to be saying, right, yeah, we're happy to try this out, and we'll sell you a couple, knowing full well that everyone's going to be looking at this to see how well it does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ukraine, when we're honest, Ukraine is a huge billboard. And if Skynex works very well in Ukraine and also receives a lot of coverage by the media, I think Rheinmetall will certainly have some orders in line. I mean, it was the same with IRIS-T SLM, right?
I was just about to say that. Yeah, IRIS-T is now being picked up by the Baltics. I think they've got some, and a number of other places, and the same with HIMARS is selling out and whatever. So yeah, a lot of these are doing really well, and so therefore you can see why the industrial concerns want to support Ukraine and want to also get into Ukraine and produce these kind of repair facilities and whatnot, which is probably a good segue into the next topic, which is the repair facility. Well, the repair of Leopard 2 A6s particularly, I think. Can you explain, as far as you understand it, the issues with repairing Leopards that have been given to Ukraine?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest problem is probably the lack of spare parts, at least when we believe official statements and media reports. We have been hearing since day one that there are enough spare parts for this system and not enough spare parts for that system. So it's really not news, but somehow it doesn't get fixed. Although Germany supplies spare parts and ammunition with every new delivery of the system, so it's not just the system itself, we're also delivering spare parts and ammunition along with it. We must not forget that that Ukraine, is at war. I mean, the system in that case, the Leopards, are used in a different way than here in Germany, and in a much more intense way than here in Germany. And that goes for every system. I mean, that's not only the Leopards, it's also, for example, the HIMARS. And I doubt that the problems only affect to Germany, but it appears that other countries are finding better solutions for this. I mean, at least I'm not hearing about like not a lot spare parts for US delivered systems or for Polish howitzers or whatever. To be honest, I personally just hear that about Germany. That's a little bit bothering, to be honest.
I guess,
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting. So I guess that as far as main battle tanks go, there aren't any other ones that are being used. So the Abrams don't seem to be being used. The Challenger 2s likewise seem to be kept back at the moment, and the Leopards are being used, and the Stridsvagn 122, the Swedish variants, seem to be used more in maneuvers. So I guess there is that. And when it comes to things like Bradleys, there are so many Bradleys in the world. The Americans have probably got more spare parts than you can poke a hairy stick at. So yeah, it does seem that maybe, I don't know if it's justified or not, but certainly the spare parts issue for Leopards is something that we hear quite a lot about. I mean, they're hoping for it. They have some repair facilities inside Ukraine, as far as I understand it. Then there's a Polish one, isn't there, and then one in Lithuania. Is that right?
Yeah. So right now, even though Rheinmetall stated that they want to open the maintenance center in Ukraine near Kiev already, they recently said that they're currently still training personnel on repairing, maintenance, and stuff like this. So I'm not sure if it's really open at the time.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean that. Yeah, you're quite right. I meant more smaller term. You know, they can fix minor things, as far as I understand it, in
Yeah.
Ukraine. But as soon as something major or more significant, they have to ship it out, and that's a huge problem. But yeah,
Yes.
the major repair facility. Yeah, I can't think that'll be up and open yet.
Yeah, no, and just like you said, depending on the version, so all the Leopard 2A4s going to Poland, and
Right.
the Polish side is handling everything, and the Swedish tanks, the Stridswagen, and the German/Portuguese Leopard 2A6, they are going either to Germany or to Lithuania, depending on the damage, and are getting repaired and maintained by the German industry at the time and at the place. And I can say that Rheinmetall at least has announced that the German government ordered a large spare part package for the Leopard tanks in December, and that the contract has also been signed with the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense to improve the distribution and delivery of spare parts to Lithuania and Ukraine at the same time. So much for statements and plans. We will only see in a couple of months what really has changed. I mean, at the time right now, it's only statements.
Yeah, I mean, at least the rhetoric is there, but hopefully the actions will follow. I mean, Viggo, good old Viggo here says, in regard to the HIMARS vehicles, the high mobility artillery rocket systems, about a third of them are constantly under maintenance and on rotation, I believe. The claim is at the moment that 80% of Leopard 2s are being fixed at the moment. So yeah, there is always going to be a need, especially HIMARS might be a slightly different case, is that they must be used just so much that it's unsurprising that they're getting constant maintenance. But yeah, is it 80% of Leopards are that was what was in the news recently? 80% of them are being repaired at the moment.
I would actually doubt that.
Right. Okay.
I mean, when we are talking about project like orgs, for example, yeah, who are watching and keeping consistent updates of which stuff has been damaged, which stuff is abandoned and destroyed and stuff like this. So when we just talk about the destroyed systems, which are labeled as destroyed, I mean, doesn't mean that they're actually destroyed, but they are so heavy damage that they won't get repaired immediately or whatever. And when we just take the abandoned and destroyed Leopards, the 80% would be way too much. And so
interesting. Well, yeah, but hopefully then there are more Leopards being utilized at any one time. So moving on to one of the most commonly discussed topics, and we did talk about this last time, and I assume that your views haven't changed, but nonetheless we'll talk about it again. What are your views on the Taurus missile, and if you can say a little bit about it? Do you think Germany will ever free the Taurus?
I mean, to answer very, very quickly, yes. I think at some point, yes. But I think, as I said in the last interview, my position, just like you have said right now, hasn't really changed yet. In my opinion, it all comes down to the US. So we have seen this with the Leopard tanks. We have seen this with the Marder infantry fighting vehicles, that Scholz really wants the USA on board, and he waits for them. Doesn't matter what happens in Ukraine, he waits for them. And surely the situation right now with the cruise missiles, with Taurus, isn't any different. And I would say as soon as the USA makes cruise missiles with a comparable range available, the Taurus will not be far away. So that's my personal viewpoint.
The other argument is that Taurus aren't being released because Germany need them. They're part of their strategic stockpiles, and they don't have enough of them to be able to give them away and still maintain their own sort of strategic defense. And likewise, they haven't put the order in for any more of them. So you could overcome that issue if you just ordered some more. So do you think there's any value in that argument at all? Are these, is this a weapon that the German military don't want to give up because they feel they need them?
I mean, of course, I can't talk for the military. From my point, I would say we have about 600 in stocks, and from the 600, about 150 are operational. The other ones have to be overhauled, maintained, whatever. Yeah, and I mean, 600 is a lot. I mean, it's still less than the Scalp BG and the Storm Shadows France and the UK has. But 600 is still a lot, and I don't see why we couldn't spare, like, let's say 20 to 50 and of the operational ones, and just make the other ones which are not operational right now, just make them operational. I mean, it costs a lot of money, of course, and that's money that is missing in terms of air defense, armored vehicles, and stuff like this. But with these 20 to 50 missiles, Ukraine could do a lot of stuff. I mean, do a lot of important stuff, and I don't see any issues with that.
Goodness me, I was pretty excited last night, and I did a breaking news update because of the strikes on Crimea, Belgorod, and indeed Novorossiysk. So Novorossiysk being the Russian naval port, or it's now a naval port, where the Black Sea Fleet has been repositioned since leaving Sevastopol. And that was hit last night. I don't know of any updates of any damage done, and it's probably a case that the Ukrainians were going for the air defenses first. But, you look at somewhere like Novorossiysk and you think perfect territory for Taurus. You look at the air bases, and again, but then the other question is, if they're going to fire at the air bases in Russia that are releasing these big bombers that are dropping the Russian cruise missiles and ballistic missiles, then would Germany allow that? Do you think this is a sticking issue as well? The idea that these have got longer range than the Scalp and the Storm Shadow, and Ukraine would want to use them to hit strategic targets inside Russia. Would that be an issue for Scholz?
So, in terms of strikes into Russian territory, yes, absolutely. I mean, we have seen this with the Patriot system, for example. So, for those who doesn't know, I believe it was May this year, right? When Ukraine shot down the 3 fighter jets and 2 helicopters. No, it was 2 fighter jets and 3 helicopters, right? Yes. In Bryansk in Russia, and they used the German delivered Patriot system for that.
That's really interesting, because actually no one, and sorry to interrupt, but no one has actually complained about that, have they? The fact that German provided missiles were used to fire into Russia.
Yeah, I mean, at least not publicly.
Yeah,
From
yeah.
what I heard from or hear from non-public sources, there have been talks going on about this, and I'm sure that's true. But in terms of to what extent, what words have been fallen, and if they have any consequences and stuff like this, um, I'm not sure if that's really happened or what happened there. And yeah, but I mean, to be honest, it was a brilliant move by Ukraine,
Yeah.
and I don't see, or I'm not judging them because they did it.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
I think
the
it's
yeah,
great.
it's just the official German position on it that no German weapon systems should fire on Russian territory, should be used on Russian territory, whatever, and that doesn't change with Taurus. Even though you're absolutely right, the Taurus is probably or would be probably the most or the best weapon system to actually achieve this kind of stuff, to attack air bases, attack supply roads, etc., etc. The only thing which I see is absolutely perfect is attacking inside of Crimea. I mean, there were statements by the German government that Crimea is Ukraine and that Germany doesn't prevent Ukraine from attacking Crimea. The only thing I read in the news, of course, there's no official statement on it, is that Scholz doesn't want the Kerch Bridge to be destroyed, not because he fears of escalation and stuff like this. He wants to use the Kerch Bridge as a negotiation point.
Interesting.
So at least that's what I've read
Mm.
on the news in, I believe it was September, October last year or something. So yeah, there are a lot of targets for Taurus, but I don't think inside Russia, and I don't think that they would actually attack the Kerch Bridge. If they do,
Yeah.
applause from me, but I don't think Scholz will. Yeah.
So Vigo here says if Germany's waiting on the US before giving Taurus, then it will not happen before the F-16s are operational. Speaking of which, so how there have been these complaints that Taurus, this is coming from the Germans, I think, that Taurus would not be able to be fitted to the Su-24SNs that are presently firing the Scalp EGs and the Storm Shadows. It would take even longer to be able to adapt the planes to fit them. And there were some complaints that it would take, X amount of months that seem to be a little bit overblown. Is firing that? Do you know anything about the firing of the Taurus and how problematic that will be?
I think from my personal standpoint and which information that I have, the best way would be to integrate the Taurus not into the F-16 or other aircrafts, into the Ukrainian aircrafts, which have already adapted the Storm Shadows and the Scalp EG. So it took them, I would say, about 6 months to fully integrate the Storm Shadow and Scalp EG, and I think it will be around the same time, maybe less, with the Taurus, because it's basically the same company, and I believe also the same adapters and stuff like this. So, and the CEO, I believe it was the CEO of MBDA, he said in an interview late last year that it would take 1.5 years to
Yeah,
integrate
that was it.
Taurus into the F-16, and a lot of people have said that's maybe the official fully integration into the platform, into the F-16, but technically just firing it without any, so just be able to fire it would take less, and
Yeah.
yeah, but like I said, that's just an official statement. I really don't know.
I'm quite surprised that someone like that, I would be thinking, right, my job is to sell as many of these as possible. I'd be like, yeah, if you gave us the order, we'd do that within a few months or something. You don't want to overpromise, but you want to be really positive about that. I don't know. It seems weird that he would be sort of so guarded on that. But I don't know. What do I know? I mean, Darren here says ATP geopolitics. Why does NATO make Ukraine wait on violating Russian airspace and territory when the Russians violate Polish and Romanian sovereignty? I mean, this is kind of what German aid to Ukraine was just talking about, and myself, which is, it seems, well, it seems really unfair that Russia can strike Ukraine from inside Russia, and Ukraine aren't allowed to strike Russia back. And B, actually, Ukraine have done that with, as we said, the Patriot missiles. And then we've had what the news from the last 24 hours that Russia have got hold of, against UN Security Council Resolution 1718, they've got hold of North Korean ballistic missiles and used them to the range of 460 kilometers. So there's absolutely no justification for not giving Ukraine missiles to fire into Russia, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, that's my opinion. And I think that's pretty much what you were just saying, because you seem to be quite positive for striking targets within Russia. Is that right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it makes perfectly sense. Russia is attacking Ukraine on a daily basis. It's absolutely terror in Ukraine, and it's like we are allowing Ukraine to defend itself with both hands tied behind the back. It's
yeah.
I mean, I'm not celebrating Russian civilian casualties inside of Russia. I'm not one of the people who celebrate when I see that drones are getting shot down and then debris falls onto civilian houses and stuff like this. So people die, people get injured and stuff like this. But attacks on military targets inside of Russia, absolutely applause. I mean, this is also a lot of people seem to forget this. It's only Scholz. I do think that Scholz does a lot of things right, and I think he's getting misjudged from time to time. But
I'd agree.
When I see Pistorius, for example, he was on German television like just a couple of months after he became Minister of Defense in Germany, and he talked about that it is absolutely fine for Ukraine to attack military sites, military targets inside of Russia. And that was like a novum. That was like the first time I personally hear some high-ranking German politician talk about that. And yeah, so
yeah,
absolutely.
Interesting. Yeah, and it does seem like it is just Scholz. I mean, lots of people have argued previously about who is it that was stopping ATACMS from going from the US to Ukraine, and a lot of people blaming Biden. But I see these things as larger decisions. But I don't know but maybe that's. I don't know if there's a difference between the US and Germany there, but it would seem really bizarre. I've said this a number of times. If the entire Department of Defense in the US was saying, "Yeah, ATACMS are great. We've got a load of these that are just going to go out of date. We need to either spend a lot of money to get rid of them, or we can give them to Ukraine. Ukraine really desperately need them." Yeah, it would be weird if everyone was saying that to Joe Biden. Then Joe Biden was turning around and saying, "Yeah, thanks for all your opinion, guys. Everyone here says it's a great idea. I'm not going to give them to Ukraine because." Like, it seems weird. Like, he wouldn't have the technical knowledge about that to know that about strategic stocks. Those kind of decisions are made by the army, and then I think politicians go along with that. What are your thoughts with Scholz? Is Scholz someone that I don't really know what kind of politician he is. Does he go out on his own and make risky decisions? Is he very conservative? Does he listen to his own advisors? What are your thoughts?
I think Scholz is a really reserved man. I don't think he's like very vocal and announces a lot of stuff. He does a lot of stuff in the background, not shining a lot of light on it. And I mean, when we talk about ATACMS, and on the German side, we are talking about Taurus. I think the situation you just described is absolutely fitting, perfect in Germany. You could just point a mirror in front of it and it would fit perfectly, because the German Minister of Defense said that attacks on Russian territory would be great, would be like perfect. Not his exact words, but that's the meaning behind it. The German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock said Ukraine needs Taurus, not in these exact words, but they were talking about Taurus. And then she talked about that Ukraine needs long-range weapons to overcome the main bets, strike behind the main bets against Russian targets. And also the Minister of Finance, for example, and the I wanted to say Vice President Habeck, the Vice Chancellor, they all talked about Ukraine needing long-range capabilities, not explicitly Taurus, but I mean, we see where this is going, right? And it just seems with Biden, it seems the same way with Scholz, for example, that everyone is telling him or wants to tell him, yeah, there are a lot of pro points about it. I'm not saying there are only pro points about it. There's for sure some contra, which we are not allowed to know. But it seems like Scholz is the only one who is actively preventing this from happening.
And yeah, but so my point was actually that seems unlikely that a single person would do that. I mean, but then Schultz, if he's that really conservative sort of leader that would only do things if he sees someone else doing it, then I could understand it in that way. I'd be interested. Do you know what the Ministry of Defense would think, like the German army? Do you know if anyone's said anything at all about wanting to keep hold of Taurus, or whether they'd be up for Taurus being given to Ukraine? I don't suppose you hear outside of someone like Pistorius, though, maybe.
No, I mean, a lot of people getting asked about it, but when they're getting asked in interviews, they most likely just say, yeah, we're focusing on air defense, we're focusing on ammunition, and that's the most important stuff. And I mean, when you hear that once, it's basically everything, every time the same. There are every time the same excuses not to answer this question. Or, I mean, to be honest, it's also a little bit unfair to this person's. I mean, how does a high-ranking general inside the Bundeswehr have any decision on actually providing this to Ukraine? He can give like an expertise on it and can say, yeah, that would make a lot of sense, but he hasn't to decide it, nor would it be like bring any good if he go out public and say, yeah, but I said this and this is, you know, where I'm heading to.
Yeah. Well, Lawrence 22, and thank you so much for gifting the memberships, Lawrence. What a legend. I think he lives in Germany at the moment. He says the Greens and FDP, which is true. It's this weird situation where the Greens appear to be much more pro kind of war or pro supporting of Ukraine on a much more risky manner than, say, the SPD. Although Schultz at the SPD conference recently was saying all the right things. His speech was fantastic, I thought, in terms of saying the right things about defending Ukraine, about stepping up if the US stepped back, all those things. So that there is that general support across the board, it seems, in certainly in the coalition in German politics. But yeah, the Greens and FDP are much more in support of Taurus than the SPD, says Lawrence.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to say that maybe it comes that way, and of course it's true. But when you actually take a look at the news reports, right, where they say, yeah, Green Party in favor of this and FDP in favor of this. I mean, it's absolutely true that they are in favor of supplying and that they are more vocal about it than the SPD. But it's always the same people. It's like for example, Strack-Zimmermann from the FDP and Hofreiter from the Greens, for example. So they are always from each party, also from the CDU, for example, who wants Taurus. There's Kiesewetter and there's Röttgen. And they're always like the same 2-3 people are very vocal about it. And I mean, it's great that they're vocal about it because Ukraine needs more aid, absolutely. But it's not like the whole party goes out public and says, yeah, we want this and we want this. It's every time the same people, the same persons, and for a long time now. So yeah. But in general,
that's a good point. That's a good point. Thank you for setting me straight on that, because quite often we get, and I suppose it's the very same in the American politics. Like, I can get really incensed by what some of the MAGA Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Matt Gaetz are saying, and it makes me go mental. But of course, the question is, are they representative of all Republicans? Are they representative of all the base, of all the politicians? And so, yeah, there's a lot more nuance involved. That's for sure. Thank you very much to Parrot Andy. Every little bit helps our channel going. I love that, Andy. Our channel, because I do. This is. There's such a community here. I really appreciate all of you. So thank you for that. That's so kind. Let's move on to a couple of systems. You just mentioned the TR. I think you mentioned it earlier, the TRML 4D. I know this isn't one that we had pre-prepared to talk about, but I was wondering if you had anything to mention about this, because there have been a number of these, and they were announced again today. Some more of these announced by the German Ministry of Defense. So this looks like a really capable bit of kit. Is there anything you can tell us about the TRML 4D?
Yeah, so this radar is a airless surveillance radar, which is used, for example, in the IRIS-T SLM system, and so it's a main radar basically, and Germany delivers them inside of the IRIS-T SLM systems, but also delivered, I believe it was eight in total, additionally to the IRIS-T SLM system. Yeah, and they are capable of, I believe it was about tracking 2,500 targets, about that, to a range of 250 kilometers. Yeah, I guess it sums it good up. And Hensoldt, who produces the radar, currently manufactures about one per month, and until the end of the year, they want to go to 1.5 radars a month.
Good stuff. And they are, I presume that they can plug into the whole. I talked to you last time about that whole network system, how Ukraine have got the only system that has been produced, I believe, at the moment. More might have been produced since then, but it's like it's got loads of letters like IAMB, whatever, and it's essentially they've got this centralized air defense command and control system or network, basically, is controlled centrally, that you can plug every bit of kit into, radars and air defense systems, and then it can work out what threats you've got coming over and what the best air defense system to use against it is, and you can even I think fire them centrally. And you can also plug and play with, they've adapted some of the Soviet era stuff to put into this, and I imagine, radars like this that can operate both with the IRIS-T on its own, but I presume that they're, as you say, they're useful as radars, that standalone radars, to give you just coverage over the whole of Ukraine. I mean, they just need so much air defense kit, as you said earlier, air defense. So yeah, is there so that's the IRIS-T SLM. So is there a little bit you can say about IRIS-T, because that seems to be, we've mentioned a little bit before that you say they've upped their missile production to 500 a year, is it?
Yes.
So what's the difference between IRIS-T SLM and SLS?
So the SLS, or right now, I'm just talking about what Ukraine has, okay?
Yeah.
Not like the full-blown systems. So Germany supplies IRIS-T SLM systems to Ukraine and additional SLS launchers. The launchers itself are just basically the vehicles, which you say, yes, in the middle of the image, which stores the missiles and just fires them then. So that's the launchers. And the SLS launchers are being integrated into the SLM systems. And the SLS launchers uses regular air-to-air IRIS-T missiles, which are getting used, I believe it is the Eurofighter, for example. So many nations have them on storage and could deliver them. And yes, exactly. And I believe before they can be launched via the ground launch station, the SAS launchers, they need a software update or something at deal, but it shouldn't take long to do that. And the SLM systems, they use a different variant of the IRIS-T missile, the IRIS-T SL missile. SL stands for surface launched. And they are more advanced. So the SLS, or the IRIS-T missiles, have a range of about 25 kilometers, while the IRIS-T SL missiles, I believe it is about like 40 kilometers. So they are more advanced than this.
Excellent. And yeah, so these are systems that are being, provided. Quite a few of these have been provided to Ukraine. In fact, if we go back to what you have told us in your list, Iris-T, this is what has been provided already. So that's 3 SLM, that's medium range launchers. So that's, as you say, 40 kilometers. And then 2 Iris-T SLS launchers. But do you know if other nations have provided Iris-T?
No. So you could argue that Sweden was involved in it, because I believe it was Sweden sold like 12 Iris-T SLS launchers / systems back to Germany, so we can
Right.
make them available to Ukraine. But I haven't found any confirmation about this. I just know that Germany talked with Sweden about this.
Interesting.
Apart from that, I haven't seen any nation like delivering ammunition or something like this to Ukraine directly for the Iris-T SLM systems. Egypt, funny enough, is the only one which is confirmed to be like heavily involved, because first two, at least the first one, but I believe the first two, yeah, you wanted to say it, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I know what you're going to say, but carry on.
Yeah, the first two Iris-T SLM systems were intended for Egypt. They have bought, I believe it was 7 systems in total. Maybe even more. I'm not sure at that point. And Germany convinced or agreed with Egypt to supply the Iris-T systems or the Iris-T SLM systems later to Egypt, so that the first 2 systems could go to Ukraine instead. And that's why, for example, you just see it in the image. That's why, for example, the first 2 Iris-T SLM systems in Ukraine have these Egypt sand pattern, and the third system and all further systems are painted just in green.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And do these get placed near the front line, do you know, or they're used to defend cities, or both?
So at the time, we have just supplied 2 systems. We knew that both are in Kiev. So the Iris-T SLM systems have played a very, very vital role in protecting Kiev. They have almost like a 100% success rate in Kiev. At least to statements from soldiers and politicians like Klitschko, for example. The manufacturer of the Iris-T SLM system, Steer, for example, gave an interview just a couple of months ago, and he also said that Iris-T, or the soldiers with Iris-T SLM, have a success rate of about 100% in Kiev. And at that point, at one point, they like destroyed 13 cruise missiles at the single attack wave in Kiev with the Iris-T SLM systems. With the third system, I'm actually not sure, because the Russians also knew that the first 2 were placed in Kiev. So there's no point in placing like decoys and stuff like this at the front line. But in the recent days, we have seen so many like 2 or 3 decoy systems or real systems at the front line. At least with 1 or 2, we could pretty much guarantee that these were decoys. With the first one, it's a little bit different. There, nobody could like actually tell if it's a decoy or not. Yeah, so this video, for example, is one like 99% decoy.
Yeah, I read out this in my news video I think this morning. So I shared this with people. But yeah, it doesn't show any secondary cook off or anything. And as I said, and as you said there, as soon as the video cuts off after an explosion, you know that it either hasn't done much damage or it's a decoy. Because there's no, if it had a big explosion or a big secondary cook off, then it would be on the video, right? They'd be shouting about it.
Yeah, and also what I wanted to say is, as soon as we see all these decoys at the front line or in the near of the front line, maybe it's because they want to like put a lot of these there, so Russians wouldn't attack the rear system if they found it. maybe that's the reason. Because like when you know that both systems, now we have delivered 3, are in Kiev, there's no point in placing decoys at the front line, at least from my opinion. Like I said, I'm not a military person, I'm not an expert, and I'm just tracking German aid to Ukraine. That's all. So there might be a reason, but I don't see it if there wouldn't be a system close to the front line.
Someone's asked about, I forget who it was. Let's see if I can find it. No, I can't find it. But someone asked about whether this radar system can track drones. Do you know if it's got that capability?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Small drones.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it depends on how you say small. Like, how small are we talking about? Like FPV drones? Because the Iris-T SLM, for example, is on a regular basis shooting down Shahid drones, and the radar of it is a TRM-4D. So,
yes,
I haven't seen
things like FPV drones are never going to be. You're never going to use air defense systems to shoot them down. No. Yeah.
Hopefully. And that's actually where the Skynex comes in handy, right?
Well, that's a good point. So it can just provide a wall of lead so that nothing gets through, I presume.
Yeah, I mean, some people have suggested, for example, that it's possible to, like they did in May last year, to place a Patriot system at the front line and to protect the Patriot system with the Skynex system. Because the Skynex system is like for short range air defense in ranges where the air defense systems like Iris-T, SLM, or Patriot can't really work due to the missiles. And since the Skynex system uses, it's basically like a shotgun for air defense, right? And so that would be a perfect example.
There's something else. Again, it's another Hensoldt bit of kit that I've talked about previously on my videos, and that's the AMPS. And we've heard that, I think, is it 4 systems? I don't know. It's probably listed on here somewhere. I don't know where you'd have
function.
Yes, of course. Well, I'm going to do. There we go. AMPS self protection systems for helicopters. 4 of them have been delivered. These are bits of kit that you can put on and around the helicopter. You can have it as a standalone system inside a helicopter, and fixed wing aircraft as well can use this. Or you can integrate it into your display and whatnot as well. There's 4 of those, which would then protect the helicopters from missile attacks that can either send off flares or misguide it with laser, so it fires off somewhere else. So I presume that's good news for the helicopters, and I guess these are fairly high value bits of kit.
Yeah, I mean, there's like 12. I believe it is 12 more to come in the future.
Oh, really?
And so Germany contracted. You can actually look that up at my website. They've contracted. Just go down to deliveries planned and or search for another AMPS. Then another 12 are coming, exactly. So like I said, like you said, these are self-protection systems for helicopters. There are many different variants. We don't know the production capacities. We don't know which variant is being delivered to Ukraine. So could be anything. Could be this stuff missing. Could be this feature missing. We really don't know. So it's a great kit, just like you said, but sadly no information on what exactly is being delivered.
Darren's just furnished me with all those letters. What I meant to say earlier is IAMB, IBCS, EOC. That's what that centralized air defense network is called. So thank you for that. So I don't suppose you might not know the answer to this. I certainly don't. Does Ukraine have? Well, actually, I think I do. Does Ukraine have airborne standoff radar? I presume that means like the big AWACS planes. I don't think Ukraine has any of those, but they use NATO planes. But of course, the NATO planes can only go in international airspace, and they'll be fairly vulnerable if they were operating too close in inside Ukraine anyway. So they have use of those, but I don't think they have any themselves. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that, mate.
No, absolutely not. I'm probably less informed than you are on this topic.
And so I don't know. Again, this is something you might not know anything about. Are there any anti-drone rifles, and are they actually any good? Has Germany supplied any of them? Do you know? They often,
Anti-drone rifles.
as in
Yeah, you mean
you do because I'm sure on the German lists we've seen anti-drone
yeah.
electronic warfare sort of systems and whatnot.
Yeah. So we have delivered anti-drone sensors, anti-drone systems, drone detection systems, all this kind of stuff. And it's pretty much up the list to on top of the first list, to be honest. So you could just go down. Yeah, exactly. And but what have been delivered is completely unknown.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we know from publications from the federal government from last year that Ukrainian soldiers have trained at certain companies who have these kind of detection systems and stuff like this. But there are no official confirmation. There's no press releases by the companies on if they are involved in it. We just know that Ukrainian soldiers trained there, but we don't know what happened there, why they're trained there, and stuff like this.
Yeah, so when it comes to those anti-drone guns, I remember some reports coming out of the Russians giving the Moscow police some of these after Ukraine was first hitting Moscow with those drones back last year. And they were giving the Russian police these, but there were complaints that these were more dangerous to the Russian policemen's testicles than they were to the drones they were firing at. Apparently, some kind of radiation issue or something. So,
sorry.
but there you go. So done them some good, I'm sure. Yeah, it's sometimes you do see these on lists, which is things like anti-drone guns, but there's a lack of detail. And trying to find out, and people frantically go, well, what can that mean? What does this mean? What type of missile? What type of this? What type of that? And I guess with a lot of this drone technology, which is arguably quite sensitive technology as well, there's probably not a lot of details given.
Yeah, like I said, not in this term. I mean, I could guess, but at that point, I would do no good at all. Just putting out numbers. The only thing which I know for certainly is that they are trained at certain companies in Germany, which are providing this kind of stuff. But we don't know which kind of kits, systems, whatever was delivered, if it happened at all from these companies. We just know that Ukrainians have trained there.
Yeah. And with regard to the Patriot system, because Germany have actually provided two whole systems, which is fantastic, and we think that it was a German system, as you said, that took out the airframes in Bryansk, and they've got, I presume, another system that's either in Kiev or maybe Staro-Konstantinov, the airbase in Khmelnytsky, but and then there was one that, of course, came down to Odessa, possibly to shoot down or Kherson area to shoot down the airframes that were attacking the Dnipro River. So there are lots of theories about which Patriots are used where, but two is a good. I mean, these are expensive bits of kit. Do you know how many Germany has? Has Germany got the capacity to give any more?
I mean, in theory, yes. In theory, yes. We have 13, I believe, including the training system, which is not a full capable system. And of this 13, we have given away already 2 to Ukraine, and which basically means we have 11, including the training system. And so 10 for operational basis. We need a couple of them for NATO obligations. We had 2 stationed in no, 3 stationed in Poland. We had 2 stationed in Slovakia. We had 1 stationed in Lithuania during the NATO summit. So they're getting around a lot. And when we subtract everything which is or was in other countries at the time, Germany had 4 or 5 for their own territorial defense. And most of the systems were in the industry, in fact, to be modernized. So yeah, so we could, in theory, deliver more to Ukraine, but And want to see that happen because, like we said, Ukraine needs more air defense. But I think other countries should do that first, because
Germany can't do everything, right? I presume is what you're going to say.
I mean, we have delivered one more system than the US. We have delivered 2 more extra launchers than the US. And I mean, we don't know how many missiles the other nations have delivered. But apart from that, only the US have delivered 1 system and missiles. And we know that the Netherlands have delivered 2 extra launchers and multiple missiles, which is actually great, because when we look at the fact how big or how small the Netherlands actually are, and they are one of the 3 countries in the whole world to have delivered delivered stuff to Ukraine, which is actually great.
They've been great, actually. The Dutch,
absolutely,
really.
But there are many countries which are delivering aid to Ukraine or have been delivering aid to Ukraine, which have or operate Patriots, and I think there should be some countries. I mean, there's a possibility that, for example, you have 5 countries which are putting effort together and saying this country is providing the radar system, these countries are providing the launchers, and everyone provides us a couple of missiles, and then it doesn't hurt anyone as much as one country would deliver a single system.
That's a really good point.
Then Ukraine has a whole new air defense system, and everyone has just to get a new launcher and get more missiles and stuff like this. I mean, I'm not sure if it can happen like this, but I don't see why. Maybe some of your audience has intel in that, if it could be possible, like for technical reasons. And
just when you look at the list of what Germany's given it, I mean, it's just 243 border vehicles, fire trucks, pickups, random vehicles, tractors, trains, semi-trailers, 63 Mercedes-Benz ambulances, Bronco ambulances, mobile decontamination vehicles. There was bridge laying and Zetros, 240 Zetros trucks, load handling, HS-81s, heavy and medium bridge systems, bridge laying Bibers, Berger Panzers. It's just incredible, the amount of stuff, actually, when you look at it, and credit where credit's due. Let's go to Gepards then, and you've delivered 52. Not you personally, I mean, that makes you a very busy man.
No, I personally did that.
Well done, you. Awesome. But can you tell us about the ones from Jordan that I don't think are there yet, and who's getting hold of them and what's going on with them?
So they are not in Ukraine right now. At least we haven't seen any footage of them yet. In terms of Germany, we have delivered every single Gepard which is available right now, although which makes sense. In terms of the Jordan ones, I'm not sure how involved Germany is. I'm sure they are at least in a great extent involved in the training of Ukrainian personnel on these in Germany, because I don't see the US training Ukrainian soldiers on systems they even don't operate themselves or don't know themselves. But they are being sold back to the US, 30 to 60. We don't know yet. There's no official statement on. I know there says it's 60, but everyone I was talking about is like up to 60, but we don't know yet. The only official from Germany, the official statement I know is from one of the heads officials from the German Ministry of Defense, and also involved very, very deeply into Ukraine. He's regular in Ukraine. He said that Germany is delivering up to 30 Cheetah Sparks. It's not the Gepards, it's the Cheetahs.
This is a Dutch variant, which is a slightly better radar, as far as I remember.
Yes, and they have a different radar. You can probably you can very, very easy see the difference when you take a look at the radars. And he said that Germany is going to deliver 30 of them in cooperation with the US to Ukraine. And he actually said that they want to deliver this in 2023. So yeah, maybe there were some delivered, but we haven't seen any footage of them yet. And we don't know if it's 30 by the US and 30 by Germany, if Germany is just involved in the training. He didn't specify on that. He just said that Germany is going to do that in cooperation with the US.
Yeah, and that's fantastic because I mean, Rheinmetall are already delivering, I believe, the ammunition that they've had to start producing again for this. Is that correct?
Yes. They started manufacturing the ammunition early last year, again after a contract from the German government. And in total, Ukraine will get 300,000 rounds of Gepard ammunition and about 150,000 until the second quarter of 2024. And then they are changing the production to a new type of ammunition. And then they're going to deliver another 150,000 rounds.
Wow. So one would presume better ammunition than they were previously given.
Yeah.
So that's good news. So Ed here rightfully says that's a lot of essential kit, to be fair, that doesn't get talked about much. Look, if you go and check out what German aid from Ukraine has compiled as a list, it is just phenomenal, right? This is a massive list that's planned deliveries, but even if you look at the planned deliveries, you know, that's stuff that's not there yet. You got, 6 million rounds of ammunition there, 105,000 mortar bombs, 68,000 155 mil, 243,000 155 mil. I mean, that's just a lot of stuff still to come, right? A lot of question marks, but look at all that stuff still to come. 121 reconnaissance drones of that type, 60 of another type, 50 sonobots, 15 cheaters, 22 Iris T SLS. You know, the numbers are staggering. And then when you look at what they have actually delivered, everything from medical equipment here, 500,000 first aid kits, auto injector devices, infusion pumps, hospital beds, medical material, so on and so forth, and getting up sleeping bags and Panzerhauser 2000s, and just this list is phenomenal. And I think it's right, we don't hear about it enough, and I think it's testament to what you've done here as a project to record everything that's been promised and delivered, and to compile it in this really useful website. So I really do encourage everyone to go and find this. It is linked in the live chat, but I'll also link it in the video description because I think it's a phenomenal job you've done here. And Germany has really stepped up. Just a couple more things to mention. I know. Talking about lists of German kit, I think I double report a lot of German stuff because when it gets announced, I think it gets announced on the German Ministry of Defense website, and then people like yourself talk about it, and then when it gets delivered, it gets kind of re-announced, and so I'm so often talking about German stuff, and it makes it look like they're giving double the amount of stuff. Is it like is that what happens? They announce things, and then they announce the delivery of them as well.
So the spread of information in Germany is actually very easy to understand. So just as you said, most information about the arms deliveries to Ukraine is distributed via the official website of the German government, either in German or in English. Everything there is divided into two categories: delivered and still to be delivered, which means so there cannot be any confusion if you really use that list. And of course, I'm not talking to you or referring to you, but to the Twitter accounts who originally report on the weapons deliveries on Twitter. And of course, newer packages, for example, they're also like sometimes getting announced via the media or the website of the Ministry of Defense, not of the federal government. I personally can only recommend you to simply stick to my reporting when I can do a little bit of advertising. Apart from the fact that I'm usually anyway the first to report, some of the big accounts which are reporting on this are also just getting the information from me or becoming aware of the updates through me. And as far as humanitarian and financial assistance is concerned, this is handled by the ministries themselves. I, for example, check the press releases of the most important ministries in Germany like 3 times a day. And I'm not sure how others are reporting on this measure, but if you take a look at my Twitter site, for example, Jonathan, and like just scroll a bit down, and there is like, yeah, there's the post I made. So when you take a look at my post, you have everything like delivered and then pledged, and there's like no confusion going on. And when you see, for example, at the pledged versions, I always do, when I have previously reported on this, I always do like an already known behind it or an unknown type. So I
Right.
always mentioned when I have reported on this, like the 4 Iris TSLM systems, for example, they got announced in November last year when Pistorius, our Minister of Defense, visited Kiev. So
Do you know what? I now know never to go to anyone else in the world to learn about German pledged and delivered equipment. You are the only source in my life now where that's concerned. But it's so useful. I mean, what you do. In fact, JR has kindly asked, "Do you drink coffee?" In other words, do you have a donation site like Buy Me a Coffee where people can support the work you do?
If you really want that, yeah, you can go to my website, and there I have like a support somewhere. I have this maybe in the footer. I don't know. I don't really advertise my Ko-fi link because I'm not doing this for the money.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are on the bottom right, like support me. Like the most not noticeable
literally,
spots.
yeah, literally as far away as you can get. Bottom
Yeah.
right, you won't see it. That's fantastic. Well, you know, people feel generous. They know where they can help you out.
Yeah.
So just kind of like one more thing I was going to talk to you about. Where's it gone? Oh yeah. This I meant to talk to you about this before to make sure that you'd know about this, that I didn't want to spring it on you, so I'm just going to spring it on you. But I did a bit of a news piece on. I was looking at Euromaidan Press article whereby they were talking about Slovakia and Hungary and about how they are supporting Ukraine in terms of the military industrial complex, even if the politicians at the top are not being very pro-Ukrainian. They have orders that they need to fulfill, and actually they've kind of gone back and said, it's not that we're not going to provide you any equipment, it's just that we're not going to provide equipment from our stocks. We're happy to make you equipment. In other words, you pay us money, we'll build you stuff. And it turns out the Rheinmetall is very involved as one German company in, say, Hungary, and is producing stuff there, and I think Slovakia possibly as well. But they're producing the Lynx APCs, or sorry, Lynx infantry fighting vehicles in Hungary. Do you know anything about the reasoning why they chose Hungary? I mean, I supposed it was because it was going to be cheaper, energy would be cheaper, labor's cheaper, and also any news about any information about Lynxes and whether they're going to be delivered to Ukraine, etc., etc.
I'm honestly not very sure why they've chosen Hungary for there. I know that Germany, especially Rheinmetall, is very, very close to Hungary. And Germany is Hungary is like the third biggest importer of German arms from the last year. Yeah.
Wow.
And I really don't know why they've chosen Hungary. Maybe it's like because of the funding, because just like you said, labor is cheaper, electricity is cheaper. Who knows? I personally don't know. Pappberger, the CEO of Rheinmetall, recently talked to the Wirtschaftswoche that Rheinmetall is currently like readying up for producing Lynx and Fuchs, for example, to Ukraine, and they are currently producing Lynx. I believe he was talking.
First one,
I believe it
April or so, something pretty soon. But yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I believe it. I'm not 100% sure at the time, so please fact check this when you spread it somewhere else. But he said that they are currently producing like 10 Lynx infantry fighting vehicles for Ukraine, and the German government has already signaled the green light of a delivery to Ukraine. And I believe it was 10. But I'm sure they are currently producing them in Germany, not in Hungary.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Fuchs APCs. So I remember listening to someone, I think on Andrew Perpetua's live stream, John Ridge or someone was saying that they had. I think I mentioned this last time to you. The manufacturing facility used to be in Germany, and then they dismantled it and took it to Morocco or somewhere like that, and that's where they're now building them, or they're due to build them. So I don't know what's going on with the construction of those APCs, but again, we've got Germany and the German industrial military complex really heavily involved in the support for Ukraine. And it's just so interesting that Rheinmetall, even though it's a much smaller industrial entity than, say, BAE Systems, which is a big British arms manufacturer that has also is figures around the world. It has big arms in America and whatnot. But Rheinmetall seemed to get there first and was saying to Zelensky, we want to set up shop in Ukraine. And it was only after Rheinmetall started doing all that BAE Systems were like, oh, yeah, we can do that too. Yeah, we'll go to Ukraine. Zelensky, can we meet you? Can we set up shop in Ukraine? And Rheinmetall and Papaga seem to be ahead of the curve here, and really almost one of the most central components of support for Ukraine. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in terms of armored vehicles, there's also like FFG in Germany, which is the biggest armored or the biggest supplier of armored vehicles in whole Europe to Ukraine. And but Rheinmetall is doing a lot, and just like you said, they are heavily involved in Ukraine. The first ones who actually opened a facility in Ukraine of armored vehicles maintenance and stuff. And yeah, it's really great. It's really great.
Yeah, it's good stuff. And I think that pretty much brings me to the end of the questions I had for you. There was something else, but I've forgotten it now. I'm just seeing just a few questions from the audience. Did France stop producing Scalp? The way I understand it is that MBDA are not producing anything at the moment, and they're not getting the orders in, which worries me. At least there's no public orders, which worries me that there's not a lot of forward thinking going on with regard to continually and sustainably supporting Ukraine in terms of these cruise missiles. I mean, I don't know if that's anything you would know about, but that's how I understand it, and that's a bit of a worry for me.
Yeah, I actually don't heard anything different. From what I heard is the same as you. Like deliveries are now done, and there's no or there are no orders of new production of these missiles.
And actually, this is the one thing I've remembered now. It was this. So the talk about artillery production. So this is one of the biggest conversations actually going on in terms of Ukraine support. They've got a massive lack of artillery ammunition, 155mm shells particularly. There's Soviet shells are being produced in Bulgaria and places to help support that kind of side of things. But in terms of NATO equipment, they need 155mm shells. There are some artillery units that are saying they're having to pull back. Literally, they are retreating on the battlefield because they have only 10 to 20% of the artillery ammunition they had access to 6 months ago. So things are really desperate. What are Germany doing in terms of trying to fulfill the 1 million shell pledge by the end of March? Do you know do you know in general whether Europe will be able to achieve that, and how much is Germany sort of helping in that regard?
So I think we should all be aware that this goal will not be achieved.
Right.
The German Minister of Defense, for example, Pistorius, said in, I believe it was November, that this goal, or the big main question which people should ask themselves is, was this goal ever be achievable? And yeah, so no, I don't think it gets achieved at all, not even close. And Germany is ramping up production wherever it can. I mean, Rheinmetall, for example, was at 60 to 80,000 artillery shells per year at the end of 2022. And at the end of 2024, we are already talking about 700,000. So
Wow.
that's like about 10 times as much as they have done before.
Okay, so
And
let's do. So I've got my calculator. So it was 60,000.
yeah, 60 to
So
80.
so if I'm looking per month, that is 5,000 a month is what it was, and now you're saying it will be up to. Did you say 700,000?
Up to 700 is the last official statement by Rheinmetall.
And so per month that'll be almost 60,000 a month, which is suddenly changing things up a bit, isn't it? And if you're doing so, then divide that by say 30 per day. That means Germany could produce, if it all went to Ukraine by the end of next year, 2,000 a day for Ukraine, which is what they're firing right now. So in other words, at the end of 2024, on present stats, Germany could be providing 100% of Ukraine's ammunition. So that is that. I mean, that's great, but obviously that's not now.
Yeah, and it's really, really important that we are mentioning that just a share of these missiles are really getting delivered to Ukraine. That's what people always forget about, that there's not only Ukraine. Of course, Ukraine needs it the most right now, and I totally understand it. But I have actually done a very, very long thread on my Twitter account, like a couple of days ago, on artillery production in Germany, a very, very long one. And
that's brilliant, because I'm going to read that out and one of my extras and say how wonderful you are. So
I just want to say that when we're talking about other countries, there's not only the thread, and it's very long. And when we're talking about other countries, like many countries have to buy up or are buying up right now artillery ammunition. So Germany, for example, in the next 7 years needs to buy more than 200,000 shells in total, and that's just Germany alone. And so just a small amount, or maybe not a small amount, but just some shares of these production capacities actually go to Ukraine. And this is also the maximum capacity Rheinmetall is talking about. It's not like there's every time 700,000 per year. It's like the absolute maximum.
I'm just sorry to interrupt, but Greg Terry, whom I have done some co-streams with before, who is presently out in the Ukraine, he's just got there and he's delivering aid to the front line with some fundraising that he has spearheaded, and I've tagged along behind, and some incredible fundraising. I'm hopefully going to do a live stream with him fairly soon. Hi, Greg. You stay safe. He was in Khmelnytsky and near Starokonstantinov, where there was some explosions in the last 24 hours. So he needs to maintain his safety at all times, please, Greg. But he's doing marvelous stuff out there. So sorry to interrupt with that one. Is there anything else that you feel we haven't discussed that you think is important from Germany's point of view at all?
No, I think we covered everything up pretty much. Just wanna end the artillery section.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries, absolutely. That Germany has not only the contracts with Rheinmetall, we have also a big framework contract about, I think it was like 200,000-300,000 shells with Deal and Nammo. But we don't get any updates from there. We don't know anything about this contract, what's going on. And we have also in December or end of November, I'm not sure right now, made a contract with a French manufacturer, I believe Nexta, at least this is what I hear from other sources, about the fixed delivery of 68,000 shells to Ukraine, and another frame or an additional framework agreement with a total, and with a total of 200 and more thousand shells to Ukraine, and other countries can actually buy into this framework agreement. And yeah, so a lot of stuff in terms of artillery production is already going on for Ukraine, at least from the German side. And I'm sure that's also the case from other ones.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, yes, I presume so. But Germany really are taking a lead in their industrial sector. I mean, the US is doing a massive amount in terms of production of artillery ammunition as well. But yeah, that is really significant, and that reminds me of what you just said about what this new coalition that have got together to procure Patriot missiles. So when people work together, it's a positive sum game. It's a win-win. And when we work, singularly on our own, great stuff that you're willing to go that distance and do things. But we are stronger if we work together. And I think that is being shown in terms of like just that idea of you mentioning earlier, of you saying that if you buy bits of if you give bits of your own Patriot system, so you're not fundamentally losing out on your air defense capabilities, but if everyone does a little bit of that, then Ukraine get a whole Patriot system, and then you just replace bits of it, which is possibly somewhat easier. So yeah, I think if we work together, things can happen. What would you say as a last question for you, and I think I asked this last time, what are you most proud about in terms of Germany recently, and what do you think Germany could do better on, or how would you like to see Germany improve in some aspects?
Proud. I mean, I think we Germans can be proud of the fact that our government, despite its difficulties in the own country, like provides military aid every week to Ukraine, also on a massive scale. And I think that was also my answer from last time. And I don't think that my answer will ever change to that, because that's really something I'm proud of. And what could we improve? I would say I would like to see my government putting more pressure on local politics in Germany. We have already like 2 or 3 cases here in Germany where local politicians have preventing or are preventing companies that produce important explosives, powders, whatever, from expanding their factories or building new ones in the first place. And these expansions are needed to ramp up the production of artillery ammunition, of missiles for the air defense systems, Iris TSLM, for example. So one case is Troisdorf, for example, where a sub company of Deere wanted to expand their explosives company, and the city prevented it from happening, and now they can't expand their factory. And they are actually the biggest provider of explosives to Rheinmetall and Deere, which make or produce a lot of artillery ammunition and the missiles for Iris TSLM and stuff. So it's very, very important, and it's prevented by local politicians. And of course, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if it's on what extent it's possible that the government or some individuals of the government are putting pressure on it or forcing local polities to step back. But I can't imagine that the government has no decision-making power there. So that's something I would hope for.
I mean, it's great when I see, Michael Michaels here saying big love to Germany. I'm so used to, obviously, the relationship of Britain to Germany is an interesting one, given our shared history, so to speak, and also World Cups and football. And so, like, if anyone's our like mortal enemy in the world in terms of sports, it's going to be Germany. And yet, big love to Germany. It's so nice to see a buck in the trend of opinions, in Germany. Really has, I think Scholz has actually ushered in a new era of, and I wonder whether history will look kindly on Olaf Scholz, because the Germany is now able to confidently say, and that's probably a result of the last 20 years of politics, to be honest, and Angela Merkel steering Germany very confidently forward. And despite all her issues you might pit against her, she's actually steered Germany into a very sort of positive place. And that Olaf Scholz was willing to change the military strategy quite early on in his tenure as leader and say, actually, no, we're going to be a major military player, and we're going to spend a lot more. So the really different approach to what we've seen previously, and I think that that we now have, Germany are in town, and I think we can see that from what you've told us today.
Absolutely, nothing to add.
Hey, I'm just bigging up Germany. You should, yeah. It's difficult to say. Yeah, I agree. Germany's awesome, so look, thank you so much for coming on today. I know it was live, and you're a bit tentative about coming on live. It just made things a lot easier for me to do this live. So sorry, it's a bit selfish. Just I don't have to do. It's like I can now turn the computer off and go, and my partner's I can just see he's got back, so I can go and integrate the family life. Whereas if it's pre-recorded, I'll be spending the next hour sort of putting it all together and whatnot. So thank you for that, and hopefully we can have another chat in a month or so's time, once Germany is no doubt given more equipment to Ukraine. Are there any final words you want to say?
Not really, just that you don't have to worry. I mean, I even said to you, I come up live if you really want to. So when I had such big problems with it, I wouldn't have said that. So no worries. It was a great time being here. The first minutes were, just like the last time, very, very nervous, but that calmed down very soon. And I'm looking forward to the next interview.
Awesome stuff. Well, look, I'm going to be talking about your tweets on a regular basis. But for those who don't know, please go and find German Aid to Ukraine on Twitter at Deaidua. And the same just online at deaidua.org/news or .org/en, and you get all the fantastic work he's done. It really is creditable information there, so thank you for that. As in terms of everyone else, thank you very much for watching. Really appreciate Lawrence22 and Power Andy's support of the channel with their kindness. Take care, everybody, and I will speak to you no doubt pretty soon. JR's done the mapping, so I've got to find some time to put that out. It might be a late one tonight, but yeah, thanks everybody, and thank you so much, mate, for coming on.
No worries. Thank you.
Take care. Stay on the line. Take care, everybody else. Toodle pips.